The whole ball of wax was that the government-backed weather experimentation was forced to officially, in quotes I mean, abstain from cloud seeding when the storm they were targeting had more than a 10% chance of landing on U.S. soil within 24 to 36 hours. Why? Because in the 1947 test, officially known as Project Cirrus, led by General Electric chemist and scientist Irving Langmuir, as well as the U.S. Navy and U.S. Air Force, likely steered a deadly hurricane into Savannah, Georgia, and the public was hopping mad about it. Langmuir, for one, took credit for it. And the powers that be admitted man-made technology and interference from man indeed had the power both to intensify storms and to direct them onto land, whether intentionally or incidentally. Yes, the public and Congress used to be keenly aware of attempts at hurricane steering and weather manipulation in general, and the controversy surrounding it prompted an 11-year official, in quotes I mean, hiatus before Operation Stormfury could officially resume with military and U.S. government support in 1962 and beyond, and before official, in quotes I mean, attempts at steering the weather by bombarding silver iodide particles into storm clouds could again take place out in the open. But controversy continued when the papers reported on the upcoming round of weather manipulation in 1965 with Hurricane Betsy. The press was informed about the Navy and U.S. Weather Bureau's joint plans to seed the hurricane and prove their technological capability when they thought the storm was relatively idle and therefore a good, quote, candidate for meddling. But supposedly, when the storm turned towards land, the plans for weather manipulation were dropped, officially and in quotes I mean, but the media had already informed the public, and assuming that the seeding was underway, they blamed the cloud seeding project for Betsy's hitting Florida's southern coast. Read between the lines a bit much? At any rate, a lot of mistakes were made, fresh attempts were restarted, and publicity blunders endured. But the point is that the public and the federal government used to acknowledge the controversial use of weather manipulation. But then at some point, it was all forgotten, and all those who dared to talk about the issue suddenly became conspiracy theorists and crazed ranters who would do better to shut their mouths and just line up at the emergency centers and aid the recovery efforts. And nowadays, only a few people wonder how it all happened, how the weather just got so strange.
This is normal. Does anybody have a canoe?
And how even talking about the weather became a good way to become an outcast and an instant weirdo. But Melissa uncovered this official document from 2009 in one of her first articles that she wrote back in 2012. In it, an administrator from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, working in a sub-department called the Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research, in quotes I mean, was corresponding with Homeland Security's version of DARPA, their own Advanced Research Projects Agency, wherein they discussed a little-known project called HAMP. In quotes, that is the Hurricane Aerosol and Microphysics Program. Who the hell approved that project and forgot to tell the public anyway? Something like $64 million in taxpayer money was up in the air, and they were talking about reviving Project Stormfury, which had run, officially that is, from 1962 through 1983. Some of the old-timers were even recruited for the new effort, but mind you, the technology has progressed and things are no longer based around seeding the clouds with silver iodide. Things are now steered with advanced electromagnetic waves, plane-deployed aerosols, antenna arrays like HARP, and other similar technologies. But the issue that this HAMP memo acknowledged was that even back then, and still today, they had a problem, in quotes you see, with being unable to distinguish between, quote ladies and gentlemen, what happens when a hurricane is modified by human intervention versus a hurricane's natural behavior, end quote. Not only did they have lacking proof that their efforts made any difference, but they were also drowning in the downpour of what is so often termed plausible deniability. Nevertheless, research was to move forward and, quote, weather modification efforts might again become viable. They themselves admit that the blowback can be quite literal, and that efforts, ostensibly of course, to weaken and diffuse major storms, could instead put the storm on steroids and bolster its course for a dense population center near you. Where there's a will, there's a way, and where there's a quote emergency coordinator, trouble is sure to follow. Just when your neighbors thought this wasn't possible, it turns out that it was on record all along. Oh, and they've tested it out on snowstorms, lightning storms, rainstorms, and whatever other storms might traverse the land. What will happen this time, or the next? And will it be Mother Nature to blame, or Mother Government? Who knows, but keep your eye on the ball, or swirling eye of the storm. Somewhere in there may be that elusive, hidden hand. I end, of course, in quotes.
Of the day, it's going to be pretty nice, though, if you had thought about evacuation, if you have been ordered to evacuate, if it's a voluntary evacuation, whatever. Pretty nice weather to be out and about and getting to your shelters. So